So, the Twilight Zone got a reboot. Still waiting on Firefly. It's been a few years. I mean, I'm just saying, Twilight Zone, I don't know. This is what, the third reboot? Firefly's just kind of hanging out there. You know, maybe a little more time for Firefly. Nope, we needed 7 more seasons of Twilight Zone. We don't have Black Mirror, of course, to fill the gap or anything. Need that Twilight Zone. So I was recently bit by a brown recluse, and it put me into what doctors might refer to as a light coma. And in this state of twilight, if you will, I found time to sit down and enjoy, during my, excruciating body pain from the poison, the Twilight Zone episode that aired in the first running of this season, in the reboot. And when I went to watch it, I didn't really know what to expect on purpose, because I did not look at any information. I wanted to go in completely raw. I wanted to go in completely unprepared for what I was going to see. I didn't want to have any expectations. I didn't rewatch any Twilight Zone episodes. I was just completely and utterly, emotionally neutral. What I wasn't ready for, though, was how real it was. On that note, I didn't like it. I really, really hated it. Basically, the plot of the episode is we meet a struggling comedian who has been wanting to be a comedian for his entire life. Despite this, he's not very funny. He's not really gained any knowledge or skills or learned anything from countless experiences, and he's been working for 5 years and still sucks. He hasn't learned anything. And on the night of this show, which I don't think is really a particularly important show, just another night, he meets this character played by Tracy Jordan, who is a famous washed-up comedian who I guess people haven't seen for a while. And Tracy Jordan's character is like, hey, it's me, do you want to be a comedian? And of course the guy is like, yeah, I want to be a comedian my whole life. It's not very funny, you got any pointers? And Tracy Jordan's character is like, only that if you wish for it, the audience is gonna take it. If you really want to give it, yeah, they're gonna take everything from you. And it's kind of cryptic, but not in a good way. It's just sort of he doesn't make sense, and to be honest, having a conversation with this person would only yield confusion, and I would probably leave being like, wow, that's fucking weird. I don't know who the hell this guy is. I guess something in the words that he said cursed the main character, Samir. So Samir's like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go do my set. And then he does, and in the set we find out that if he talks about somebody and uses a name, then that person or named thing will just disappear. The implication the audience took it in exchange for their laughter and adoration. So this starts off really small with his dog, and no one knows what's going on. And this is what's kind of also a little strange about it, is he is aware that it's the dog, the dog disappears, and I think that it just spells out what's going on. There's not really any confusion. And then slowly he starts stupidly saying people in his life, and then they disappear. And then you get to a point where he realizes he can just say bad people's names, and that's pretty good for a while. But then he gets in an argument with his girlfriend, and he wants someone mutually in their lives to disappear, and then that person ended up being the reason that she went to law school, and so their life is completely different because he makes this one person vanish, which, I mean, I'm no expert on the butterfly effect, but I feel that would, I don't know, other things would have been more dramatic if he'd made all these other people disappear from his high school days, from his college days. Did nobody else impact his life, or anybody else's life for that matter? We get to a point where he's going to make it big and everything's going great, except that he ostracized himself from his girlfriend, from the whole law school thing. And then he is confronted with her, where she's like, I found out I found out your truth, man. You have been writing names in a book, and you're a fraud. Like, verbatim, that's what she says. And then I guess he flips his, like, deal and says his own name, and then he disappears. And then we're, like, given the spiel by Jordan Peele's character about how, you know, careful what you wish for, I guess, even though, like, he didn't wish this upon himself at all and he didn't agree to anything. We see that in another comedian that we'd seen throughout the episode is also going to, like, follow the same path. Once again, kind of in the same scenario where she didn't ask for it, but I guess them's the rules. I just really think that overall, like, we get it. It's Twilight Zone. Like, from Jordan Peele's character being so, like, on the nose the same as the announcer from the original series, is I also assumed the first reboot, which I admittedly haven't seen, and I'm not really going to use it as a critique. I just felt like he didn't match with that at all, and it just sort of weirdly shoehorned in a way that almost feels, like, pretentious, given the fact that, like, the episode's not that good and the lesson's not that good, and there's just, like, not a lot of, I don't know, like, I'm being scolded for something that, like, both was obvious what was going to happen, but also, like, wasn't a fault of a human choice, because there was no human choice. I certainly felt bad for myself, because I had, you know, wasted the hour of my life trying to find and watch this episode. There's so many other parts to it, too, where, like, there are just kind of, you know, shoehorning in weird ways of speaking that were kind of reminiscent of the original. There's, like, different camera shots and different lighting that's kind of implied to be used in echo of the original, which isn't bad, but, like, I just feel like there should have been more room for originality, I guess. And that's not necessarily, you know, a super bad critique in a reboot, but, you know, through this kind of reboot, I feel like, you know, your episodes just can't be the same. You know, the reason why we like these old things is because of nostalgia. And not just because of nostalgia, but because of sort of that suspension of disbelief that we give older things that we wouldn't give to new things. I think a good example of this is in, like, Pokemon. So whenever I watch Pokemon, I see how they make Team Rocket act. Like, Team Rocket is buffoonery upon, you know, just clownery and just terribly written ideas and things, but they're, like, really farcical. And I wouldn't recommend, say, like, now if someone came to me with their script and it was like, so in this scene, Team Rocket is going to hang glide out of nowhere and circle around the main characters like vultures from the skyscraper, and it is going to just sort of be like, what happens? And, like, when I watched that as a kid, and now looking back as watching it as a kid, I'm like, that is the stupidest, most hilarious thing I've ever seen. But because we have that, it's like, don't do that. Like, that's bad. You shouldn't do that, because it's, you know, now and not then, and you just really, you really shouldn't do that. It's poorly written. And that really is kind of what the vibe of this episode was, is, like, don't do it like that, because this should be a serious piece, and you should respect that the audience has the previous, like, history of digesting media to be able to understand what's going on without you shoehorning in and repeating things so often. When it comes to things like Faustian bargains, if the characters aren't gonna understand what's going on, they need to have, like, never heard of a Faustian bargain, and, like, not just, like, in terms of, like, that word, but just, like, giving, like, selling your soul to the devil kind of thing. Like, you've really, you know, traded power for something that you have to, like, give up, equivalent exchange kind of thing. And that's just, like, not something you can expect of people anymore, I don't think. And the main character, though, for his credit, is really trying to prove me wrong, because he does not know what's going on at any point in this episode. He is always, like, putting one and one together, and it's like, oh, okay, so if I say my dog's name, the dog might disappear. Well, I wonder, would that work with my my nephew. But then, like, every time he does it with, like, in this case, like, the nephew, he'll repeat the same kind of confusion as he did beforehand. And then, like, we see an unbearably long amount of, like, steps that he takes. Like, he'll do another person, and then after he will say another person's name in his comedy and that person disappears, he'll be like, oh, right, because when I do that, this happens. And it's just, like, it's, like, 40 minutes in, dude. I need to have a lot more, like, serious things happen and, like, aftermath happen to, like, be in it. And right now, like, you're still trying to figure it out, and it does not make sense. And I think that's a little unforgivable, just because, like, this audience is meant to be, like, an adult audience. And again, an adult audience that has seen the show, probably, or, like, is familiar with this. It doesn't make sense. This whole time, like, we get it. You know, careful what you wish for, careful what you get with your bargaining power, careful, you know, not to say your cousin's name or whatever, because they'll disappear, just like your dog did, just like your rock did, just like your girlfriend did. Like, everybody disappears. I get it. Like, I don't know why I have to watch somebody for over an hour try to figure out what keeps happening as it was already told to him and explained to him, and he keeps saying to himself the same thing, of, like, explaining exactly what is happening, but he, like, doesn't remember or get it, and that is not part of the episode. It's just, like, the way it's written. This is the definition of a sunk cost fallacy. Like, he's so far in, and he wishes himself out when he could have just, like, strategically worked around to, like, re-meet the girlfriend at any given point, or, like, we're already shown that animal names work, so, like, he just needs to go to, like, a pet store and, like, just get a list of animals, or, like, go on to the Humane Society website and just find a list of animals and just use them for his comedy routine, and then at some point quit comedy because he's already made so much money off of it. Like, it's weird, and, like, not pointedly so that he, like, is ambitious or greedy. Like, he never leaves the club. Like, he never actually gets anywhere with his comedy, and despite this, he continues to, like, encroach upon very important people in his life. Like, again, the cousin, the girlfriend's friends and family, like, people from high school. Like, why wouldn't you pick random people from across the world who are still alive that, like, would never impact you, that you would never have to worry about the consequences of your Faustian bargain? There's this, like, lesbian character who's, like, really, like, funny. Like, not, like, I'm not laughing at her, but, like, the show tells me she's funny, so I assume she is. She comes in and, like, in the middle and, like, kisses the main character and then responds with, like, if I were straight, it would be all about you. Fairness, I was shocked, and I didn't see it coming, but, like, it did not add anything to the story, and was very odd and very non-sequential to the story and universe. And I can't help but feel that lesbians don't do that. Like, they don't just, like, make out with men and then comment on how gay they are, but then follow up by saying, in addition, if I weren't gay, I would probably be into hyper-masculine, traditionally attractive men, and then leave. I might be sounding like the main character here and repeating information that seems so obvious, but I think it's a big revelation that lesbians aren't like that. We'll see if I come to this conclusion again in a day or two when something equally weird happens. What does this say about people in this episode? What does it say about people that this guy fell down a slippery slope of something he did not agree to do, it just sort of happened, to the conceit of the show, did not understand what was happening until, like, the very end, I guess? Like, he really never understood the power that he had until the end? Like, what does it say? Like, does it say that, you know, we are foolish creatures that can't handle the ambition that we have, because if we do, it just destroys us? Does it say that, like, humans are incapable of understanding and applying the barest amount of information that they get from their own environment to future events, because all of this happens and he seems to like be shocked at every moment that it happens, even though it's the same thing that's just happened. Does it say that like lesbians don't know who they are? Is it saying that actually they have quite an understanding of being a straight woman, but they performatively act like a lesbian despite having a very concrete understanding of who they are sexually if they were straight? What is the show saying? I really just feel like they took a very simple concept and I'm not going to say obfuscated it, because that implies that there's a lot going on here and there's just nothing. It's like they took, I don't know, they like took a game of hopscotch, but they never played the hopscotch game because somebody would jump forward and then another person would be like, how many points was that? And then another person would be like, what do you mean? Like, there's no points really in this game. Like, we're not really counting points per each hop. It's more of like you finish and then you get like a tally of like how many you got. Like, it's not like worth one. It's just a unit. It's hopscotch. Like, what do you want from me? You know? I think what I'd rather focus on is what it doesn't say. And I'll tell you what it doesn't say. It doesn't say how hard it is to be a comedian. It makes no implication that it is a difficult thing to be a comedian, because this guy sucks. This guy has learned nothing about comedy. He does not learn from his mistakes. He can barely even remember what happened the previous day, let alone apply what happened the previous day to the current day. He is just not a good comedian. He's not a real comedian, except that he is. Because I know so many comedians that are like this. I know so many people who like think that they're so funny and they're like down in the dumps and they would totally take this bargain even if it was given as an actual bargain, and they just like don't understand how to learn from themselves and grow as a person on their own. And it's just, I feel just as ambivalent about it as I do about this episode. Like, I just am shocked and bewildered and annoyed at the lazy writing. But, like, I just want to go home, I guess. I just, like, don't want to even engage in it. And it really just did not inspire me to keep watching is the thing. And, like, I think I'll keep watching, like, the Wikipedia page to see what the new episodes are about. But, like, again, I went in that raw, and I really should not have. I should have, like, read the synopsis and then been like, wow, that's not for me. I wonder if being bitten by a brown recluse is, like, fatal? Like, am I gonna die from that? I wish I had health insurance.